Now, a lot of times when we see problems in market and we use government to solve those problems or to try to solve the problems, right? A lot of times people will say, well, a government's a lot like a market, right? There's competition. You've got politicians. You've got different people in markets. So they're pretty similar, right? Well, okay. So there is some competition in politics, right? But really, when we dig down deep, you'll see that markets are very different from the way government operates, right? And so that's what we're going to look at here is what are the similarities and differences between government and markets, right? They are different, and the incentives in each system are different, okay? So one of the big differences is the first one we're going to focus on here, which is that government eliminates the link between payment and consumption. That is, in a market, right, when I pay for something, that is, when I bear the cost of something, I also get to enjoy the benefits of that thing, right? So I pay for a good, and I enjoy the benefits. So that link between cost and benefits is really good in a market, right? I only will pay the cost for something if I'm going to get the benefit, right? If I don't think that good is worth the cost, I won't buy it, right? And so this is why in markets, we generally see movements toward efficiency, right? Because we as consumers are constantly weighing the costs and benefits of different goods, right? Whereas in government, right, that link between costs and benefits, payment and consumption, doesn't exist, right? In government, taxpayers pay the bill, and politicians spend the money on goods. Spend money on goods, right? With government, the person paying, for the most part, is not the person who enjoys the benefits, right? So, for example, this is a goofy example, but, right, my tax dollars go toward the military, right? So I'm up somewhere, I'm paying for a tank, right? Or a jet airplane, like a fighter jet, right? I don't get to use that. I don't get to ride around the tank. I don't get to get in the fighter jet and fly around. I would love to do both. It would be awesome. If anybody has any strings, they know of anyone in the military, that would allow me to go play around with these things, I would be really excited. But as far as I know, I don't get to do any of those things, right? So I pay for these goods, but I don't enjoy the benefit of these goods, right? You could argue, well, you get the benefit of national defense, and this is true, right? But the immediate cost-benefit link is gone, right? And so this is why, for the most part, we generally see things are less efficient in government, because the person who's paying is not necessarily the person who's making the decision over what goods to buy, right? So generally, government tends to be less efficient and more wasteful than people in markets, right? So that link between payment and consumption, between costs and benefits, doesn't really exist in government, right? It exists in a few instances, right? If we think about taxes that go to maintain roads, right? A lot of times those taxes are on gas. So therefore, I'm paying the tax when I buy gas, and then I use the road. So there's a pretty good link for roads between payment and benefits, right? Or if there's, say, a state or national park that I go to, right? Usually there's a fee I have to pay to go into the park, and therefore I'm linking the benefits and the costs, right? So there are some examples of it. But most things, they are not linked, right? Okay. Second aspect here is mutual agreement versus majority rule, right? So this is another key difference between markets and government. In markets, right, for every transaction, buyer and seller agree. Not only that, but generally, as we talked about in chapter 2, buyer and seller make themselves better off, right? Most economic transactions are what we call win-win situations or positive sum games, right? Buyer and seller both stand to make themselves better off, right? So with a market, you have mutual agreement. Okay. However, as we know with government, we do not have that, right? With government, we usually make decisions based on majority rule, right? So that means there's always going to be losers, right? Whenever there's an election, there's always some people who are pissed off, some people who lose, some people who are like, I can't believe that person was elected to office, right? So with government, you have decisions made via majority rule. Therefore, you will always have an unsatisfied minority. Right? So this is why for a lot of goods and services, we prefer them to be in the market, right? Because imagine if, clothing was provided by the government, right? And we voted on what type of styles people would wear, right? That would just be ridiculous, right? Because then if you lose, then maybe you're stuck wearing bell bottoms or something like that, right? And that seems ridiculous, right? But that's the nature of government, right? We have to make decisions, right? We can't vote all the time, right? But there's always going to be some minority that loses, some people dissatisfied with the way decisions are made in government, right? Whereas that's not really the case in markets, right? Market exchange and transactions are based on mutual agreement, right? Okay. The third aspect is that in politics, things come in bundles, right? Whereas in markets, they do not, okay? So in markets, we make individual decisions over goods and services. Okay, so in markets, we make individual decisions over goods and services, right? We decide to get juice or milk or coffee or Twinkies or something like that, or a bag of lettuce, right? Whereas in government, we're generally, when we vote, right, we're making choices over packages of things, right? A lot of times we're voting for a politician who has stances on policies that we might agree with some and not agree with others, right? So in government, we're always choosing bundles, packages, right? If we wanted to, tease these things out, we'd be voting every week, right? We'd be having to go and vote on every single choice. But instead, we wait, right? We vote every year or two on a bunch of stuff, propositions, ballot measures, politicians, stuff like that. So we're always choosing packages and bundles, okay? Okay. Now, the last piece here, or the fourth one, in the sense the difference between markets and government, is there's a difference in how influence is counted, right? So in markets, right, how is influence counted in a market? Money, profit, right? So money is how influence is counted. Yes, hi Violet, you want to come and be in my video? However, in politics, right, so with government, Okay. Certainly money matters, right? Money matters in politics and in government, right? So governments have budgets and money to spend. But how is influence counted in politics? A lot of times is votes, right? And we don't do that in markets, right? We don't go around and vote for which taco we thought was the best, right? I guess we could do reviews. But there's going to be a fundamental difference in how influence is counted in governments and market, right? So in government, money's going to matter as well, but also votes, okay?